Hey, this is Ren Smith. Over the last couple of episodes of Shoresides, we've been talking about Southport's gators, how Bonner Herring fought to save his dog from one, and how Kate Marshall, the city's gator catcher, steps in to keep people safe. But there's another part of the story, the zoomed out view.
My name is John Henry Harrelson. I'm a district wildlife biologist with the Wildlife Resources Commission here in North Carolina. I cover District 4, which is 9 counties in the southeastern part of the state, ranging from Harnett County down to Brunswick County along the Cape Fear River and all the counties bordering South Carolina in that region. A lot of what I do in the summertime, primarily from I'd say March until October and November, is handle nuisance alligators for our agency. That entails going on site visits and assisting people with alligators living in their neighborhood or in their backyard, as well as conducting research on the species.
Harrelson has been working alligator seasons for 10 years, and he says the season just keeps getting longer.
This season, we have had as many or more calls than we typically have for our agency and for Brunswick County and Columbus County, which are the 2 counties I cover that have the majority of alligators. This has been the general trend since I've been here, and this is my 10th alligator season. Alligator calls, and the alligator season has got longer every year, as in we have more issues in the wintertime, and we continue to have issues throughout the summer.
Why? In short, warmer winters and more people moving to the coast.
Our alligator issues continue to rise in our state, and that's primarily due to the continued human expansion along the coast and folks moving to our coast and building homes there. And that creates habitat for alligators, particularly in the way we develop the coast, which is they come in and clear subpar habitat, so places alligators wouldn't typically be.
That pond behind your subdivision, that golf water hazard, to an alligator, that's prime real estate.
And then we dig retention ponds and we build homes around those retention ponds and call them waterfront property. And those ponds that we build are great habitat for alligators. And in turn, then we have more issues with human wildlife interactions and negative human wildlife interactions. As warming happens and we have warmer winters where it's 70 degrees and 60 degrees in December and January, that brings alligators out of brumation, that's the term that's used for when alligators go away for the winter, similar to turtles. They bury themselves in the mud or they have dens in the banks, etc. And once it gets warm and those alligators sense that warmness, they come out in public eye. And oftentimes those alligators are laying on the bank and trying to sun and soak up the sun. Because they're cold blooded, when it's colder, they move a lot slower. And so they respond less to human action. And folks tend to interpret that as the alligator has lost their fear of people, when in general, that alligator just really wants to stay on the bank and be warm versus getting back in the water and being cold.
Harrelson investigated Bonner's property after the attack. He says a 10-foot gator like that is near the top end of what you'll see in North Carolina.
You mean Mr. Bonner Harrington? Very familiar with Mr. Bonner. I've been to his property and after that issue occurred. And that alligator, according to him, was probably 10 foot long. And most alligators, I won't say that's the max for alligators here in North Carolina. We do see alligators bigger than that, but that is a really healthy adult male alligator that could be at the top end of his life range and top end of his life size. We don't see alligators. You typically don't see alligators much bigger than 10 foot. We've caught this year, for instance, we dealt with a one that's right over 12 foot long, but that's the exception. That's not the norm. That was the alligator that was involved with the incident at Lake Waccamaw, where we had the first interaction with a human. I won't call it a bite, but I will call it a first human interaction resulting in injury in a long time involving an alligator and a person. Luckily, the little girl had just received a few stitches.
And just like Kate Marshall mentioned in our last episode, Harrelson says the state is now part of something called Gator Wise, a program built on one simple idea: keep people safe and keep alligators wild.
Gator Wise just started this past year. We rolled it out. It's a conglomeration or think tank of the 11 states that have alligators. And it started with us all wanting to give the same message about alligators and how to coexist with alligators. And so it's similar to Bear Wise, which is a national program focused on coexisting with bears, particularly black bears. And Gator Wise is focused on 6 Gator Wise basics, all focusing on keeping people safe and keeping alligators wild.
But keeping gators wild is harder when people feed them, whether on purpose or by accident.
We want the future to be that there is no negative human wildlife or human gator interactions where someone gets bit or someone gets hurt, or the worst is someone is killed. We haven't had a fatality in North Carolina, and this year we had our first interaction that led to an injury in a long time involving a 12-year-old girl and an alligator at Lake Waccamaw. My goal and my role is to educate people about coexisting with alligators, let people know how to live around them, which is we don't want to feed them and we don't want to encourage alligators to be friendly toward us. And as long as we do that, alligators don't perceive people as food, and we typically shouldn't have issues with alligators.
It turns out that if in coastal North Carolina an alligator approaches you, it's unwittingly been trained to.
One of their nicknames is Swamp Puppy. If you Google alligator nicknames, that's a name that comes up. And they are very much like a dog in the sense that once they learn to associate people with food, they come over to you, like initiating the behavior that for me is essentially them begging for food, coming over and hoping you're going to give them something and expecting you to give something, kind of like a dog that you feed or a puppy that you feed. Even if he's not your dog, he starts coming over every time he sees you and looking for food. And that's what leads to the potential for a negative interaction if you're not suspecting that alligator to be there, or that alligator just takes it a step too further, because it is a wild animal and it's all resulting because people have fed them multiple times, whether they're doing it on purpose or whether they're not doing it on purpose. And feed, lots of times we hear people say, I didn't feed the alligator, but I feed the turtles and I feed the ducks and I feed the fish in my pond. If an alligator's present, you're feeding the alligator, because all those things the alligator eats, those are all prey sources. And so if you congregate prey for that alligator, he may not be eating the little fish food you throw in the water, but he is eating the fish and the turtles that come up and eat that. And so he learns to recognize you as a food source, or you as the signal of a food source for him. The same thing with throwing fish scraps, like you're cleaning your fish and you're just disposing of the fish back into the waterway. The alligator figures it out pretty quick that dead fish show up here every day. I'm going to start hanging out around here. And when he walks over here, the person who's cleaning the fish, he's going to be there waiting on it because he doesn't want to miss his opportunity. They're like most wildlife, they're lazy. Everything wants an easy meal. And if I got fed every day, I'd be approaching you as well. And that's something we tell folks. If you gave me a Chick-fil-A sandwich every time I saw you, I'd be expecting a Chick-fil-A sandwich every time I saw you. And the animals figure that out as well. And so we want to encourage people to never feed alligators and don't throw any kind of food or fish scraps in the water. And that's part of the Gator Wise basics that we talk about with people.
Even moving them isn't a solution. Research shows they'll often try to return, and many don't survive the trip.
When you feed that alligator. However, it is impacting everyone else who comes there, and it's impacting the community, and it's really having a negative impact on that alligator, because we're going to have to do something about it, whether we relocate him, whether we haze him, or at the extreme, it has to be euthanized, because that animal is no longer safe to be around the public. And we go through lots of steps before we get to that point, or we try to. Our state is the only state that still relocates alligators. However, our GPS data and our research shows that alligators have a really strong homing mechanism in them, and that they want to return and they try to come back. And oftentimes along that route, what we've seen is about half of them end up dying or getting killed trying to come back. So we're essentially putting those alligators at greater risk by moving them instead of leaving them in their natural habitat or where they want to be. And so that's why it's so important for people to just understand that we need to leave alligators alone.
Alligators aren't going anywhere. They've lived here longer than any of us. What changes is how we live with them and whether we're willing to keep them wild. This is Shoresides, and I'm Ren Smith. Thanks for listening.
Thanks to John Harrelson and the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission. Learn more about Shoresides at shoresides.org.